Lions Rock Productions.
Nobody expects that, but when you're in a city like Oakland, I mean, were there ever enough police on duty? I mean, it's I know in Vallejo, just up the road, there's never enough cops. Like they can't afford it.
Yeah.
It's just too dangerous to keep enough people around. Did you ever feel like there were enough police on the shift with you?
Never. Actually, there were a few times when I was on one shift. It was like a day shift thing. I was the only free unit in the entire city of Oakland because between major calls and people at the jail with suspects, I was the only cop. And I'm just thinking to myself, Lord, please don't let anything happen because I'm it. And my dad worked there 21, 22 years too. And he told me the same thing. He's like, nothing's changed. There was still times when I was the only unit in the entire city too. And, interestingly, they thought that it was a good idea to do layoffs, and they laid off 80 people plus 20 in the academy in 2010. And, of course it was political and there's no money in the budget, but then 6 months later, they're calling us to come back. And I'm just thinking these poor people in Oakland that are just left hang out to dry because there's no one there to protect them.
Yeah. My buddy Tom is chiming in. He lives in Vallejo. 7 cops on duty in Vallejo in a shift, and there's 120,000 people there, and there's a pretty good violence problem there. 7 cops.
Yeah.
So as a cop of one, how far behind you is backup? Is there backup?
Well, I mean, they were there, but some of them probably couldn't even hear me because they were in the jail. And I mean, if something happened, I'm sure I hope somebody would have been able to break off of whatever they were on and come to me. But I certainly wasn't doing any proactive work. I wasn't looking for any crime when I was just by myself. I would just be waiting for the tones to go off or the emergency to come out.
Right. Boy, that is intense. I mean, again, Oakland is crazy. Sid, when she says that, 1 cop free in Oakland, and so Sid, just for everybody who knows, Sid worked with LA County Sheriffs. There's no more complex and gigantic policing district than LA County. I mean, you can be 13,000 feet in the air on a mountain or in the water at the beach in a single shift. And it's insane. So a city of 400,000 people, Sid, that's, got a lot of crime, got a lot of drugs. You don't want to go to West Oakland with you don't have business there. It's just not a good place to be. And you're the one cop. What resonates with you when she says that?
Actually, I've been there. I've taught a lot of classes in Oakland. But needless to say, when she describes it, it becomes personal for us too. We have an advantage over a lot of the rural areas in the sense that backup was always going to be pretty immediate with me. Now, we've had them tied up behind trains, tied up on other calls, especially if we have a shooting, but it was never like it has been in the rural. I've been in situations where the backup was so delayed that the sheriff's department would call LAPD, 77th or Newton or Southeast, which are our closest stations, to the point where we all knew them. CHP used to use radio monitors so they could hear the sheriff's frequencies because they worked the central division down there, and they would back us up. But you're right. When I first got into law enforcement, it was always, for us, it was 2-man cars because there was no women at the time. And I never really worked a 1-person car for a long, long time, years, because it was just too dangerous. And then exactly what she's describing, when the budget got tight, they had to tighten up something. And one of the ways it made sense on paper was to distribute your forces farther apart by putting them in 1-person cars. But I got to tell you, I got into some real trouble by myself. It took me a long time. I mean, I couldn't even begin to tell you all the differences between working a 1-person car and a 2-person car. What I stopped, where I stopped it, what I was looking for, where I went on patrol, even to where I put, in those days, we didn't have handhelds, where I put the microphone. We used to lock the doors because we'd get attacked from the passenger side. I know several deputies that have been shot from the passenger side. So when we work one person cars, we always lock the doors. But the problem is that when you do a vehicle stop, you do most of your investigating on the passenger side, which means if you have to call for backup, you've got to abandon the suspect, run around the car to get in the driver's side, talk on the radio again. So there was a lot of things that we had to adjust for based on the circumstances.